points of view and content on Voices of the Community are those of the speakers and do not reflect those of this station, its management, administration, and the Board of Trustees of the City College of San Francisco. If you would like to make comments about the Voices of the Community programs, please go to Mixcloud and search for Voices of the Community to leave a comment in the comment section of the show. Welcome to part 1 of Doing Business in the Bayview. Today's show is focused on economic and community development efforts being executed by community members in the Bayview neighborhood of San Francisco. The Bayview community is experiencing gentrification, which in turn is pushing out some of its longtime residents and changing the face of the community. Our show today features community members discussing how they are working together to develop and execute economic and community development solutions while retaining Bayview's unique blend of culture and history. Our voices of the community are Andrea Baker, a community and economic development consultant and founder of Bayview Baker Consulting, April Spears, founder and chef of Auntie April's Chicken, Waffles, and Seafood Restaurant, and Barbara Alko, executive director of the historic Bayview Opera House.
This is George Coster from KCSF's Voice of the Community. I'm here today with Andrea Baker of Andrea Baker Consulting. Andrea and her team are working in the Bayview community of San Francisco, focused on attracting, retaining, and supporting small businesses along with providing her unique blend of community development. Andrea, welcome to the Voices of the Community.
Thanks for having me.
With all of this work and your passion for helping small businesses, and we talk about micro enterprises, which some people call mom and pop businesses,
Absolutely.
or to your point, 1 to 3 people or 4 people in a business. What brought you into the Bayview community, where you're kind of focusing your attention and your passion today?
Well, there are two things that come to mind immediately when you say that. I have to give credit to Claudia Wieck. And Claudia Wieck is someone who worked in this area of working with small businesses. She created Renaissance Entrepreneurship Center way back when. And Claudia had since retired as the CEO of Renaissance. But she was working with SFHDC, San Francisco Housing Development Corp. And they had just gotten a big federal grant to build 4800 3rd Street, a development with, I believe, 22 units in it, and it would have ground floor commercial. At the time, which was probably now, oh my goodness, we're dating ourselves, probably 12 years out or more, 15 years ago, somewhere in that range. That would have been the big sort of major development on 3rd Street at the time. And Regina Davis was the CEO of SFHDC, and Claudia had a contract with Regina to help to identify businesses, to try to bring businesses to the corridor. Claudia, knowing my work, and because I had been an instructor at Renaissance Entrepreneurship for many years, Claudia pulled me in and said I could really use your help in how, someone reminded me just this past week that 15 years ago, the goal that Claudia, Regina, and myself had was to have 6 restaurants along the 3rd Street corridor. That was our lofty goal at that time. And of course, one of those was intended to be, or actually at the time 2 of them, at ground floor commercial of this development that SFHDC was building, which then became 4800 3rd Street. Claudia and I started working on this small contract on how can we bring 6 restaurants to 3rd Street. So that was the beginning of beginning to actively work in the Bayview. But I will say this as well. My husband, who also works for the city, was at the time an SFRA employee, and his project area was the Bayview, both the shipyard and the Bayview. He was in the Bayview a lot and did tons of community meetings in the Bayview, and for many years I felt like a single mom as he went to community meetings. But this meant that both I and my kids ended up going to a lot of community meetings in the Bayview. I had this contract where I was working in the Bayview, but I was also going to community meetings in the Bayview with my kids, sitting in with my husband on the weekends, and getting a sense of what the environment was like in the Bayview. So all of that is what led me to the Bayview. Yes, we got the 6 restaurants, not immediately at that time, but we got in that initial, we were able to, I think in that initial effort, we identified maybe 4 restaurants that went in. And then Radio Africa, and then of course the development was delayed because we hit the downturn in the economy, and so budgets got all crazy, and price of steel went up, and so the whole construction thing was delayed. But also out of that, what is this, 3.5 years ago, that development did get completed, and Radio Africa and Kitchen went in on the ground floor. So that would have been number 5.
And what are the other 4?
So it was La Laguna, Auntie April's. One of them I know closed. And Tiffany's, which is in the Bayview Plaza, and they actually have operated continuously. And then a Chinese restaurant also in the Bayview Plaza.
If you came up with this whole idea of a pop-up market, so could you tell me a little bit about why you did that and what the kind of outcome of doing that?
So the pop-up market, I want to say that there was a team, a group of stakeholders from the Bayview, in the Bayview, who for years have wanted to have, and we still do want to have, a farmer's market. And so we were working on trying to get a farmer's market located in Mendel Plaza. And I did many months, I recall now about 7 months of schmoozing Pacific Coast Farmers Market, to see if they might be interested in setting one up there. And I finally got them to the point where they wanted to come and see the plaza. They thought they might be interested. We were getting ready to do the happy dance. And the day that they came out to the plaza was the day when there happened to be a fight on the plaza or some sort of shooting, and there were a couple of people inebriated on the plaza. And so just when I got there were police and ambulances and all of that. And needless to say, the guy from Pacific Coast said, "Not quite ready for prime time yet. Thank you. Call us again in the future." So one of the primary stakeholders, Earl Shaddix, who is really working with me hard on this. We went to dinner and we were sort of like, oh, what a bummer. What are we going to do? But at the same time, DPH had just put out their CFO permit, which is Cottage Food Operator Permit. So it's a permit that allows an individual to use their kitchen in a very prescriptive sort of way for very specific items that they can produce and sell.
And DPH is Department of Public Health?
DPH is the Department of Public Health. And so this had just come out, and Earl himself had been the first person to get a CFO permit under this new legislation.
This would allow small entrepreneurs like Earl to basically create food and or beverage product from their home kitchen.
That's correct. And Earl was baking bread. And so he was baking, he got a CFO permit to bake bread. But here's the catch to the CFO permit. You can produce, Andrea, can bake bread in my home. I can sell it directly to you, George. But I cannot sell it to my corner store and ask my corner store to sell it to Megan and Susan and everyone else. There cannot be a third party involved in the transaction. It has to be direct to the consumer. So as we were sitting over dinner and talking about this permit that he had just received and he was going to do, and that we thought that, we needed to let more people in the Bayview know about this, we'd also realized that then if you made a product, how would you distribute it? If you could only sell it direct, then what would be the mechanism for that? And so really over dinner, Earl and I sort of committed to this idea of, well, what about if we started a little pop-up market or something, so that would give a way for people to be able to sell? And at the time, we had like 5 people that we knew who were in the process of applying, or like Earl, had just gotten their CFO's permits. And so with that, the Bayview Underground Community Pop-Up Market was born. And we started at Market on 3rd, owned by Dan Dote. who volunteered his space for us to use, and we had 6 vendors. And we started doing a weekly pop-up market. And, the approach is always, I think, to do things and pay attention and continually jigger them to make them a little bit better. And so we started with 6. We figured out the configuration. It took us a little while to figure out best times. And then we realized that music was a key part of bringing people in. And so we committed to always having live entertainment. Not only did the live entertainment bring people into the market because it's great music, but we also, for me, it's another economic development strategy because it was putting musicians to work from the neighborhood. And so that was key. And then we realized that, if since a lot of our vendors were preparing prepared foods ready to eat, we were getting families that were coming in. And so we thought it'd be great to have some activity for the kids. And so with that, we sort of outgrew the space at Market on 3rd. I should also say, though, that when we realized at that point, we'd done it for about 3 months, and we'd learned a lot from doing that. We also decided to take the approach of, we used to say that we were a little bit like a second-line gumbo band. And the idea being that we would move the market from one community asset to another, and that in each community asset, we would spend at least a quarter, so 3 months there. And so, why 3 months? Because it's sort of prescriptive, it ties to the season. 3 months gives you sort of enough time to sort of get a read on how things work. And the idea being that, like the second line gumbo band, you would go to each asset and you would pick up additional people who might follow you, and then that way grow the market itself. So we moved to the Bayview Opera House. Barbara Ockel, who's the executive director of the Bayview Opera House, and herself does a ton of work really in the Bayview, invited us to use that space. And that was a great thing for us because it was a much larger space. It allowed us to expand immediately. And because the Opera House has they have artists in residence, they took over the arts component of the market so that families could come in with their kids and have their kids participate in an art program which was more than just color books and crayons. These were artists that were working with them to make masks, to make images, to try all sorts of different painting. And we were in this larger space. So now we could have an arts corner for the kids. We could have a little area where we had cafe tables and chairs so folks could sit and enjoy both their food and their music, and they could still see their kids. And then it also gave them the opportunity to connect with their neighbors. So we started the market really as an economic development, strategy, but quiet as it's kept, I think it became a community building exercise because over time it sort of became a habit for folks. And the way we looked at it was on Thursday evenings, come to the Bayview Opera House, your local assets, support your local businesses and your local musicians, and catch up with your neighbors on what's going on in town. Another part of the market also is that we allowed folks you could come in and table if you had a program or that you wanted to introduce, a project you were working on. There was a point in the market where I don't like a lot of speech making, so we limited to 15 minutes. But each person could get a minute and stand up and say, hey, I'm working on this project now. I'm looking for some volunteers to work with me on this, or I'm looking for information. I think that's probably, other than the fact that, yes, we provided this opportunity for these micro vendors, I am also most proud of that because I think it really did help to bring the community together. I also think that, and we sort of tried to commit to being along 3rd Street because it's also serving the purpose of bringing folks back to 3rd Street as a commercial corridor. Back in the 50s, 60s, that was a vibrant corridor, and it changed. And so many people who've grown up in the Bayview never come to 3rd Street anymore. And I think even now, as we're looking at rebuilding that corridor, a key part of rebuilding that corridor is bringing people back to the corridor. Because you could bring businesses to the corridor now, but if there is no foot traffic, then those businesses don't want to be there. I felt like this was a way of reintroducing 3rd Street to the residents.
This is George Pastor with KCSF's Voices of the Community, and you've been listening to an interview with Andrea Baker from Andrea Baker Consulting about her community development work in the Bayview community of San Francisco. We'll take a break from our Doing Business in the Bayview show with this public service announcement. Did you know you can listen to KCSF 90.9 live right in your smartphone? KCSF is now available to listen to on the go with TuneIn Radio. Go to tunein.com and download the app to your phone, or just listen through your browser. This is tunein.com to start listening live to KCSF 90.9, your community, your radio. And we're just joining us. Today we are discussing economic and community development solutions in the Bayview community of San Francisco. We are speaking with Andrea Baker, a community and economic development consultant and founder of Andrea Baker Consulting, April Sayers, founder and chef of Auntie April's Chicken, Waffles, and Seafood Restaurant, and Barbara Ockel, executive director of the Bayview Bistro Opera House. Let's continue our conversation with Andrea Baker about a pop-up market project that features local Bayview businesses, entertainment, and provides a community meetup.
What are your plans for, either reconstituting the market or setting it up differently?
So currently, we have, and part of the reason we also stopped, I want to say that we left the Opera House and we went to Pier 70 in Dogpatch. And while we went to Dogpatch, we were very clear that we were bringing Bayview vendors to Dogpatch, and all of our stuff said Bayview comes to Dogpatch, as it were. And we did that because the Bayview Opera House closed for renovation, and we couldn't find a space on 3rd Street that was large enough to accommodate the market. We became the first event that ever happened on Pier 70 when it reopened for activation. And so we were at Pier 70 for about 6 months. And that was good. The purpose that did serve was, I think it did introduce Bayview businesses, because by now we had not only micro businesses, but we had some of our small businesses on the corridor, Auntie April's, Radio Africa and Kitchen, Old School, that were part of the market. And so after doing that, and we closed down, so a lot of those businesses grew because of the folks from Dogpatch. Folks picked up catering jobs. One of the things we hoped would happen is that Dogpatch residents would become aware of these businesses and maybe patronize them periodically. And we feel that also happened. But then when our 6 months expired at Pier 70, and they were very kind and generous, Jordan Langer, with Pier 70 Partners, we did not pay any rent, so we had the space rent-free. So I like to, this is why I say it really does take a village to make this happen. So we were there 6 months rent-free, but still, and we had thought that the Opera House would be ready, and it is, of course, as you know, still not open. So the combination of not having a home and also not having funding, because it's also very expensive. That's probably the third thing I should have said, the expense of running something on a weekly basis. And so we had run out of funding. So where we are now with the market is that we are part of Third on Third, okay, an event that happens. It used to be the third Thursday of every month. It's now the third Fridays of every month. Myself specifically and the Bayview Underground, we are, as it were, founding members of the Third on Third group. Tyra Fennell was also very involved in starting she was at the time with the Arts Commission, and now the Bayview Opera House takes the lead on Third on Third. We now do the market with every Third on Third event. So we are up once a month with Third on Third, or market, or Third on Third, our Bayview Underground Market vendors are out there. So that's the only time that we're sort of popping up now. What would I like to happen down the road? we would love to, I mean, once the Opera House reopens, it is our plan to go back to the Opera House. Whether we'll go back to a weekly format is still up in the air. The issue of funding is one of them, and I think we would have another conversation with all of our underground market vendors to determine whether or not they're still committed to the idea of once a week, or whether we go to once every 2 weeks or once a month. So that we're hoping is going to happen regardless. But in terms of Bayview Underground, I think our hope would be to eventually have some sort of incubator that could house this program, that would have a commercial kitchen that accessible, have a retail component as a part of that as well. And then, you know, George, you know, and you've heard me say I feel a lot like I'm continually technologically challenged, but I am really clear that technology is going nowhere. And so, and as we know, it is becoming more and more a part of all of our lives on an ongoing basis. And we are now in this very strong sharing economy. So we feel like now having some technology lab, computer lab, something like that as a part of our incubator is going to be key. So yeah, that's what I'd love to have. I'd love to have great commercial kitchen, a retail cafe up front so that our vendors who produce their goods in the commercial kitchen can immediately have a point of distribution. And then also we would create a gathering place for community where community can come in and support other community. I think this is sort of in a way also going back to that old structure, old, where we're dating ourselves, of can we get the dollar to turn in our community a few more times before it leaves? And I think if we can create those neighborhood serving locations, assets within the community, that's a way to get the dollar turning before it leaves.
What do you see as some of the biggest issues facing the community? Economic, community development, the social component of it. I mean, obviously there's gentrification, in San Francisco, but you're there, you're on the ground. What do you see are some of the biggest issues facing the Bayview community, and where does it go from here?
Wow, that's, isn't that the $60 million question? Or maybe it's the $1 billion question right now. So clearly gentrification is happening throughout the city, and I frequently say that I, despite all my years of working in this, don't know how to stop gentrification. I think with the work that we do in the Bayview and in other communities, what we're trying to do is to provide an opportunity for those who are there now who want to take advantage of that. And let's see if we can get those folks started. We like to think that our arms are always wide open and we embrace everyone. But I will say that in the work I do, I'm really hoping that we can identify folks from the community who've had this great idea for years and years and who need some help to make it come to fruition. That number is dwindling, that's just a reality, and there are fewer and fewer resources. So folks are leaving the community because it is becoming more expensive, or just across the board. So that's a general thing in San Francisco. I think in the Bayview, the things that the reason that there are not more storefronts filled on 3rd Street is the issue of foot traffic. And so for 3rd Street and Bayview specifically, I think there's a combination of things that have to happen for it to hit that point. One, it's a very long corridor. Two, there is not enough density. Now, I probably said the awful D word there because there is push-pull about whether or not there should be more density. But here's the reality. I'll say this. Somebody said to me recently, who has been living in the Bayview for 5 years or more now, and said, I still can't find an organic tomato anywhere on my corridor after all these years. And in the next breath, that person said, I don't want them building at large any big development across from me because I just don't want any big developments. I like all these small buildings along 3rd Street. Well, life is about choices. It doesn't change. For everything, life is about choices. So, what I would say and did say to that person is you got to decide what you want more. You want that organic tomato? Because if you want that organic tomato, then there needs to be more density along the corridor, which will allow the merchant to go out and make that investment in the organic tomato because he knows now or she knows now that they've got 200 possibilities of selling that organic tomato instead of your one. And so density is required, I think. We have to increase the density. How that's done, I am not a planner, but I think there needs to be smart and thoughtful thinking about that. And there are folks who are way above me who can shepherd that concept through. But density has to be built because if you want to bring merchants with neighborhood serving businesses to the corridor, they're going to have more feet on the street. So density. With density, I think we can also address some of the other issues that are key issues. One of those is cleanliness. I just had this conversation with a business owner 2 days ago, and I like to remind people, we all love to, many of us have gone to Disney World, Great America, any of those amusement parks. What's the thing that you notice? You go to Disney World, there are all these folks walking around who are picking up the gum wrapping piece of gum wrap or the cup lid that you dropped on the floor. It's always pristine. What that does is creating a standard. They're saying to you, this is who we are, and this is how we think of you, and this is the environment we want you to be in. So I think when you have a cleaner environment, that people respond to that. I believe that people rise to your level of expectation. So the corridor needs to be cleaner. And then the third item, and it's not necessarily in order of preference, but safety. But I think, see, density, safety, and cleanliness are all tied together, right? Because with more density, there's more feet on the street. You then can fill more of those storefronts with merchants who really actively want to make more money, so they're more inclined to clean up, sweep up in front of their space because they know they're going to have customers walking down the street and they want to make sure that the customer comes into their store. So more inclination to do that cleaning out. And if there are more feet on the street, then it becomes safer for everyone. Safety is key because while women still, unfortunately, don't make what men make, women still really drive retail sales in this country because we are oftentimes the folks who do the household budget. We do the household shopping. So I can tell you this. Women will not go down a corridor, commercial corridor, where they don't feel safe. And worse yet, they won't let their children go down those corridors. So not only do you not have the current shoppers, but there is no way to train a new group of shoppers, right? Because they're not using those commercial corridors. So safety is key, and women need to feel safe on a corridor, and then they'll bring their money to the corridor.
This is George Coster with KCSF's Voices of the Community. I'm here today with April Spears, the owner of Anti-Aprils in the Bayview. April, welcome to Voices of the Community.
Thank you.
So I wanted to know how you got involved in food and beverage. Is it something from your family background? Obviously you have a love that comes through with your smile and your website and your restaurant and what people say about your wonderful participation in the Bayview community.
Well, I grew up cooking in my grandparents' kitchen, and there was always a love for food within our family because my grandma had 6 boys, so obviously there was a lot of food, being cooked at all times. And so I started cooking probably around the age of 5 or 6 actually. In my later years, my grandparents always envisioned for us to have a restaurant, a soul food restaurant, and they never quite made it all the way there. So I'm glad I was able to pick up the torch and create a wonderful family restaurant that we have here today.
And so, are you using any of their recipes, or is there, the Anti-Aprils, secret ingredients, if you will?
The majority of the recipes are infusions of my grandmother and my grandfather's recipes. My grandfather's from Shreveport, Louisiana, and my grandmother's from Texas, so they both have different flares of Southern styles of cooking. And then I kind of throw in a San Francisco edge to everything because I was born and raised here, but I grew up with them, and I learned everything about cooking from them. So it's a bit of an infusion of all that stuff.
When did you come up with the idea, and how hard was it to actually bring it to fruition?
I came up with the idea. Well, this is my second location. My first business I opened in 2006, and I named it after my old employer when I was a bail bond agent here in San Francisco. Totally different field.
Helping people though.
Yes, helping people still. My first restaurant, I named it after Olivia. Her name was Olivia, and I named it Olivia's. And I came about with the restaurant. I was working for her, and she had actually passed away. And I was laid off a few years after she passed away. And I was working for a travel agency kind of like at the same time. So I had 2 jobs at the time. After that layoff, that was 2 layoffs with jobs I had been at for like over 10 years each. And so I was like, I don't want to keep gambling on everyone else. So I was like, I'm going to open a restaurant. And everybody was like, what? You're crazy. You're just going to open a restaurant? I said, well, you guys come to my house every weekend. You eat all my food for free. Then you lay on my couch and I can't get rid of you. I might as well charge you for it, So at that point, I just decided, I said, I'm going to go ahead and try my luck. And I stepped out on faith and I opened up in 2006, and I'm still here.
And so what were some of the biggest issues that you faced? The failure rate, as you know, in restaurants is really, really high.
You know what? I guess because I didn't have anything to go by. I just everything was going to be new. All the experience was new. Like I said, I cooked my whole life, but I never, ran a restaurant. I never managed a restaurant. I just had a talent, and that was to cook. And then everything else I learned really as I went along. My sister said it's all the training we had back in the day when we were kids, and we used to play like store, and I used to be a cashier, and my sister used to be a customer, and we kind of played around like that. I said, hey, that was our training day for this stuff, because now we're pros at this stuff now. But when I first opened, I had no experience in running a restaurant, and I really just learned as I went along. And I guess everything was a challenge because everything was so new to me. But I was able to somehow learn very quickly.
And what would you say to those people listening to the show that are thinking, I grew up in a family and I love those recipes and I'm thinking about starting a restaurant. What would you suggest to them?
It's great, but it's a lot of work. So just be prepared for that. The shopping for the store alone, I wasn't prepared for. So just going to the store and getting products that you have to bring in every day or bi-weekly or weekly, however you're shopping, just that aspect alone I didn't even think about. It's like, okay, yeah, I'm going to cook all this stuff, But hey, somebody has to go pick it up, load it in the car, unload it, bring it in, prep it. It's like a whole lot more than just cooking. So just be prepared to work really, really hard, and you gotta stay focused and diligent. You gotta do it. It's every day. It's an everyday thing. It's all day. It's every day. When you run your own business, it's all day, every day. No breaks.
Why the Bayview community?
Well, like I said, I was born and raised in San Francisco. My parents' first home was here in Bayview. I learned to ride my first bike in Bayview. But my grandparents, they lived in the Ingleside district of the city, and that's where I really grew up. After, I would say probably like 6 years old, I stayed with my grandparents, and I have roots here in Bayview, but I'm really a Bay Area kid. I'm like from all over the Bay Area. I think this location chose me. I don't think I really chose the location. When I was out looking for locations, I was looking all over the city. I was looking everywhere. And this location, as well as my first location, kind of just found me and fell into my lap. It was really kind of a blessing for me to be able to come over, see a space, and actually be able to say, okay, here's my first and last. I'm going to go get permits. I'm just going to open up. But I stay here because I feel that I'm almost like a beacon of hope for the young generation here, still in African American community. Bayview is it's like the last frontier, and I want to be able to have a positive image for the neighborhood children to look up to, and to say, hey, if she can do that, I can do something positive too. It may not be a restaurant, but it may give them, an idea to do something different and out of the norm of what they're used to seeing or what they grew up seeing. Because a lot of the kids around here don't have proper mentors. They don't have proper examples of, what it is to do something good, for yourself and for your family. So I feel like the location chose me, and I'm here for the long haul, or as long as my lovely landlord will have me. Because I haven't purchased this building yet. We have a new landlord now, and he's awesome, and I don't think I'll be going anywhere. So we'll be right here for the children of Bayview to say, hey, I grew up eating that stuff, and it's still there. Look at it. There she is. So that's why I'm here in Bayview, just to show support to my community, have something that people can really look forward to, have a family-oriented space for people to come and enjoy themselves.
What do you think are some of the biggest, issues for small business people such as yourself to start up? Is it, is there financing issues?
Right now it's like, I feel that there's still a lot of, we're in the middle of an industrial neighborhood. We don't have a lot of foot traffic, which is, a big part of restaurant business. You need that foot traffic. I've been pretty fortunate to have the clientele base that I have, because we don't have a lot of foot traffic like the jumping areas of the city where all the restaurants and shopping are. I would really love to see some more retail over here, something that will draw more people to the neighborhood, because we have tons of food around, but nothing really else,
Right.
So I would like to see more stuff come about so we can have a wonderful neighborhood, to continue to have a wonderful neighborhood and build, something positive for people.
You're across the street from the Opera House. It's being completely redeveloped, and the Mandela Square, etc. Do you see this area as the new town square for the Bayview?
I think so. I mean, right here, the block that we're on is, considered the heart of Bayview, the Bayview Opera House, where we are here. I think that with the new renovations and a few of the new businesses coming in, and people are, holding on to things, and we're finally building. And because normally what happens is someone want to come in and they'll open up and they'll be gone in a year, they'll be gone in 2 years. So I've seen some businesses maintain themselves, and I think when the Opera House opens, there's going to be more opportunity to have more events that will draw more people to the community. So I think definitely it's going to be a big to do, because we're right in the middle of everything too. We're like in the middle of AT&T Park and where Candlestick was, and that's going to be a whole big shopping development and everything there. So I think this whole area in itself is going to be awesome in the next coming years.
And the downside of that, of course, is more people flooding into the area, costs of housing going up,
Yeah.
etc. Any ideas or suggestions for keeping the neighborhood, to your earlier point, is, it is like kind of the last.
All I can say is that, it's no surprise. and if we just keep closing our eyes to it and pretend that it's not happening and it's not changing and just continue to go on with our daily lives and not do anything to enhance our daily lives, you're gonna get mowed over. And then people that have businesses, need to really hold on to the businesses, hire within the community to, create, economic wealth for our community, so not everyone will have to leave.
That's an important part of your presence on the street, from what I can gather. You're obviously providing a great role model,
Yeah.
And you care deeply about the community.
Yeah, I really do. So I want to see, our neighborhood thrive, and I would like to see people that have worked really hard along the years to be able to maintain and take advantage of what's to come, because some people aren't going to be able to hang on, So hopefully, we'll still be here, and a few others will still be here, and have a good representation of, the heart of Bayview. Some of us have to stay.
There seems to be kind of a strategic plan. I mean, you have someone like Andrea Baker, and you have Barbara, who's
Yeah.
running the Bayview Opera House. Do you feel like there's kind of a vision for the 3rd Street corridor, that the community members could participate in, or is it just the city of San Francisco is coming in and saying, "Here's our plans, everyone"?
It's kind
get
of
on board?
both. It's kind of both, because there's the vision, but if there's no one to, make the vision come alive, or people being able to last long enough for the vision to come about, it's kind of difficult. And that's kind of where we're on the fence with Bayview, is that we have a few great businesses, but not quite enough are here to really make us all keep the wheels turning. It's kind of, we need more businesses to come in, and I know that there's a vision for that. I want the vision to become the reality so that we can move forward. It's a little difficult still, in the community, keeping businesses open, but I know that the goal is to have all of these storefronts open and have viable businesses in them, and have people walking up and down the street, shopping, and, not just out there.
Auntie April, where did the name come from?
Well, my name is April, obviously. And it really comes from my nieces and nephews, because my sister has 4 children, and I just hear it all day long. Auntie April, Auntie April, Auntie April. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to name the restaurant Auntie April's. And I was like, there you go. That's how we're going to do it. We're going to call it Auntie April's, because everyone calls me Auntie anyway, so might as well brand that.
April, what are some of your favorite dishes?
So right now, my favorite dishes are shrimp and grits, which is really popular here. We actually won a couple of awards for them. And obviously our chicken and waffles are like the best. So those are 2 great items that you gotta check them out. But we also, we do breakfast all day here too, so our breakfast is awesome too. So we do everything's good here, so it's hard. Look at me. I mean, I know you guys can't see me out there, but now I'm wearing it well, honey. I'm wearing it well.
We'll take a break from our doing business and Bayview show with this public service announcement. Just this segment, another kid dropped out of school. If we do nothing, 3.5 million kids will receive a diploma over the next 4 years. United Way knows that kids who have a caring adult in their life are more likely to make it. The difference between a dropout and a graduate could be you. Take the pledge to volunteer now at unitedway.org. Brought to you by United Way and the Ad Council. If you're just joining us, today we are discussing economic and community development solutions for the Bayview community of San Francisco. We are speaking with Andrea Baker
This is George Coster from KCSF's Voices of the Community. I'm here today with Barbara Ockel, the Executive Director of the Bayview Opera House. Bayview Opera House is a historic landmark that serves as a focal point for art and culture in the Bayview Hunters Point community. So Barbara, welcome to Voices of the Community.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me.
I wanted to ask you how long you've been engaged with the Bayview Opera House, and reading about your background. You've been here since what appears to be the rebirth of the Opera House.
Well, I don't know about the rebirth. It's been reborn many times in its 126 years history. I first got involved with it a long time ago, probably like in the early 90s or so, when I was working out at the Hunters Point shipyard, and the shipyard artists decided they wanted to get more connected with the community, and the Bayview Opera House was the obvious partner for that. And so I organized artists painting a big mural on different panels of fabric that we mounted on the wall of the Opera House. So that's my first interaction with it.
So how do you see the Opera House, within, as an anchor in the Bayview Hunters Point community?
Well, the Bayview Hunters Point community has the recent history, like say the last, 50, 60 years has been a fairly, I'd say, stressful history for the community, with all the workers coming, basically immigrating from the south to work in the shipyards, doing really, really hard and dirty and dangerous work. Then when the shipyard closed, all these people being out of a job, which created basically a huge pool of poor people who didn't have the skills or means to transfer to other careers at the time, and it started this cycle of generational poverty, for the Black community. Then in addition to that, with the gentrification of the Fillmore district, a lot of Blacks came from the Fillmore because they were being pushed out over there. They came to Bayview, and Bayview became sort of the Black Mecca, unfortunately, for a lot of very poor residents. We feel very committed to being a center for those people, for the descendants of those people, for the kids who still live in public housing, who attend schools that are severely underperforming, where at least half the grade is performing way below their grade level in reading as well as math, and kids who basically do not have a chance to succeed at education with the kind of education they are receiving. In addition to that, many of them face a lot of strife at home. They may not have fathers, or the fathers may be in jail, or people may be drinking in their home, or getting high, and all kinds of things like that. It's not a proper environment for many of these children, and so they act out in school. They don't achieve in school. They're not in a mental frame of mind where they can learn. And not that arts are going to save the world, but we're trying to be like a beacon of light in those children's lives, where we show them that they can succeed at something. Even they may be terrible at math, they may not be able to read well, but they can still sing, they can still dance, they can paint, and they can express themselves through those art forms. And we hope to ignite an inner fire in them, that they develop a passion for something. We don't care what it is, but a passion that drives them forward and motivates them to get an education and to get out of the cycle of poverty. We have two ways of supporting the arts in the community, main ways. So one is we have a youth arts program. It's called Dare to Dream, and our building is currently under renovations, and it's closed, as you know, and it has been closed for about a year and a half now, and will probably be closed for another 6 months or so. So it's been challenging, but in any case, when we are open, the kids from the after-school programs in the surrounding schools come to the Opera House, and we hire professional artists to teach them all kinds of different art forms. And so not only do they learn those art forms, they also get out in the community. A lot of kids grow up with the idea that you don't walk on the street, it's dangerous and all this kind of stuff, which first is true to some extent, but it further isolates them. And so they come to the Opera House, and they also experience it as their community center. They feel we're coming to our Opera House. That's how they feel it, and they grow up with a feeling that there's a center that's there for them. And now we're only sending artists into the schools because that's all we can do. And we still continue some of those programs, but doesn't create the same kind of sense of community as it does when several schools come together in one central building.
Joining us, today we are discussing economic and community development solutions in the Bayview community of San Francisco. We are speaking with Andrea Baker, a community and economic development consultant at the founder of Andrea Baker Consulting. April Spears, founder and chef of 18 April's Chicken, Waffles, and Seafood Restaurant. Roberta Ockel, executive director of the Bayview and Strat Opera House. Let's get back to our conversation with Barbara Ockel from the Bayview Opera House about her work to bring arts and education into the Bayview community.
The other thing we do is we put on community events that are arts-based. So these events often feature local performers, they feature local artists, but also we bring in artists from everywhere in the city, even sometimes beyond the city, so that people get exposed to different art forms, to different kinds of people, different cultural art forms, and so on, although we generally stick to art forms that we think will appeal to the community that is here. We're not necessarily, bringing the symphony orchestra in, but it will be maybe a jazz band, a blues band, or a rapper, or something like that will appeal to them.
You do work a lot with local schools, for example, Drew Elementary. Do you reach out to the schools? Do the schools reach out to you? Do you come together and formulate a program?
Well, all of that happens. So right now, so we have very strong relationships with the schools that are within walking distance of the Opera House, because the schools that are not within walking distance really don't have a way of getting there after school because the time is too short to take public transportation. We do have also a little bit looser relationships to the schools who are a little bit further away, because they have participated in our summer program. In the summer, we have an all-day program, as do the schools, and then it becomes possible for the schools a little bit further away, say Bret Hart School, Markham X School, to also participate. Even schools from Potrero Hill come and participate. So, but now, basically, we're connecting these community events with what we're doing with the schools. So, during the community events that normally are like 5 to 8 type of time frame, we have an afternoon event where we bring the schools out, and we have some of the event attractions for them in the afternoon. So we have artists doing art projects with them. We have circus games, and we have those games for them to play. We have all kinds of activities that are available during the evening event, but now it's only available to the kids, and they come with their teachers and they enjoy all these activities, which is great because many of these kids will not be able to come out at night because their parents may not be interested in going. So, and then the workshops that we're teaching in the schools, we're teaching the art classes, they usually relate to the event that's coming up. Like as an example, now we have, the next event is going to be Halloween. And so we have the kids in the schools decorate pumpkins, not real pumpkins, they do cutouts out of cardboard, and they make their own cardboard pumpkins. And then we have a big trick-or-treat trail along 3rd Street, and all the vendors, the merchants that are participating, get one of those kids' pumpkins in the window. So the kids create the decorations for the event.
Do you and the teachers or the schools figure out some kind of curriculum? It sounds like there's
Yes. Well, basically we hire professional artists, and they always create a curriculum, and the curriculum always has an educational component that is beyond just the art project. Like for instance, the Halloween, you also talk about the Day of the Dead and Halloween, where it comes from, and all that traditional history. Same for the Juneteenth. And so it's a lot of history and understanding, and then bringing the art in with that, and the cultural traditions that are associated with certain events, and have the kids express their thoughts and what they learned in an artistic form.
Can you describe to me a little bit about first, why the events, and you've kind of talked a little bit about that, but the whole idea, it appears like it's a combination of not just arts and culture, but also the idea of small business and food and beverage, which also happens to be now percolating up as a real business here in Bayview.
Yes, very much so. So all those events have a strong economic development component. And Third on Third was actually started with a kind of a mandate to activate the merchants along 3rd Street and have them participate and give them more exposure. Now we're all doing it together in one plaza, and we invite the local restaurants who are along these 3 blocks to come out in tents and promote their business that way. And everybody is just a lot happier that way. But it's all about getting this area around the Opera House to be a viable commercial corridor with businesses that thrive, which at the moment is unfortunately not the case. There's a lot of shuttered, empty stores, and the businesses who are here are struggling to, in varying degrees, but they're definitely not making money the way a small business should.
So what would you say is your impact, whether it's economic, social, environmental, I would even venture to say emotional?
I think the impact is in all those areas, and it all is a big, melting pot. And working with Andrea Baker Consulting has been great because she brings this economic development expertise, and so she is really working closely with all the property owners and the business owners and seeing, how they can be supported. So I think that with the Bayview Opera House being a cultural anchor institution, like it's very challenging, it having been closed for so long. But when it reopens, we want the kind of situation where people might enjoy a show there at night and go have dinner at a restaurant before or after, and make this an entertainment and arts district.
What do you see as the vision of the Opera House and Plaza, when coming back to the community?
So I just see it as a big unifying factor that brings together all the people that are now Bayview. So we want to make sure that we do not become a cultural center only for the newcomers, and we don't want to be a cultural center only for the traditional communities here, but we want to bring everybody together and create a cohesive community that includes the people who've been here for generations and includes the people who've recently moved here.
Pastor, and you are listening to KCSF's Voices of the Community. If you just tuned in, we have been in conversation with Barbara Buckle from the Bayview Opera House regarding her work to make the Opera House the town center of the Bayview community in San Francisco through her work with the arts, education, and the business communities. This is part one of our Doing Business in the Bayview panel. I want to thank Andrea Baker, April Spear, and Barbara Buckle for sharing their stories about how they're each working to find and execute solutions in the economic and community reinvention of the Bayview community in San Francisco. As you have heard on today's show, economic and community development requires a holistic approach, which in turn requires the Bayview community to develop solutions that support our community members' business formation, job training, transit, housing, arts, culture, education, and government, all coming together and addressing the community as an ecosystem. We are producing part two, which will be broadcast on November 17th. Part two of Doing Business in the Bayview will include interviews with entrepreneurs Barbara Carter of Roto Events, Selena Banks of Fox and Marsh Bread, Molly McKee from the Shipyard Trust for the Arts of the Professional Shipyard, and we'll go back to Barbara Uckel and discuss how she's working with the arts community to bring it into the Opera House and Bayview schools. Thank you for listening to KCSF, the Voices of the Community.